Hey, my name is Matt Stohrer and I repair saxophones for a living. Today I am going to show you two 1933 Conn 12M transitional baritones. Both of these have fresh overhauls from me. One of these actually used to belong to me, and I apologize for the handheld nature of the video, but I just reorganized my bench space and I haven't put up my camera mount yet. So this is going to be a quick one and kind of a shaky cam style video. Hopefully you can hear me and hopefully you can see everything, because these have to go back to their owners today. So these were both made in 1933. They would have originally come in bare brass. Lacquer was not a finish option until 1934-35, but the bare brass transitional Conn saxophones in alto, tenor, baritone commonly were lacquered after the fact. And you can see a little bit here, the engraving. Let's see if that'll focus. It's sort of focusing. The engraving is a little bit washed out, and that's probably mostly due to the fact that the lacquer, let's see if this one, we can see this one here. This one's a little clearer. There you go. The lacquer would have been filled in a little bit by, or the engraving would have been filled in a little bit by lacquer after the fact. But it's not the same as a re-lacquer. These do not have the issues that re-lacquers have, where you've got wear on the keys and so forth from lots of buffing. These were originally shiny bare brass and were probably lacquered only a few years after the fact. And I mean, you can even see that the lacquer is very similar in color. It's a nice nitrocellulose lacquer. Now, these horns are best known because Jerry Mulligan played a Conn transitional. And they do have a wonderful tone, but the one thing that you're really going to have to work at is intonation and response. They require a lot of voicing in the throat. There's an awful lot of things you can do to the octave pips to help with octave response. Some folks will even put a liner inside the bore up here to correct some intonation. And it's not to say you can't fix this stuff. It's just that if you're expecting it to come out and play as easily as a modern Yamaha, you will be disappointed. And they have a really, really wonderful tone, but you have to work at it. Now, from a repair perspective, one of the things, two things, I guess, in two separate places that are really easy to do that increase the playability of the horn is you can see these key arms here, the way they're bent just a little bit. Originally, these are all straight, and the pearls are really far apart. You can make it a lot more comfortable just by bending these things in ergonomically, and these are not attached to key cups. It's just attached to the key barrel. So you can hold it here with one pair of soft-jawed pliers and hold it here with another and bend it without causing anything to bind in here. And this can actually be pretty comfortable. Another thing you need to watch out for is that you've got some really, really long rods. So here's your bis arm going all the way up here, and down to your bis, which then the bis actually is what controls your C sharp key, right? So when you do a 1-in-1 fingering, if you're not already fingering the B, from here, energy is traveling down here to close the F sharp, which closes the bis, which travels all the way up here, which closes the bis, which then closes the C sharp. So if you're setting your 1-in-1 using the F alone and not holding anything else down, somewhere in here you're going to get some flex, and you're going to end up over tensioning this down here. And when you're actually playing it normally, where you've got the B and then you add the F, you're going to end up with the bis holding the F open, and you're going to have leaks in your bottom stack. Another thing that you need to watch out for is the G bounce. Okay, so you've got your G here, right? And you can follow all the way down here, down to this little guy. And the octave mechanism on these is fairly strange. See if you can follow along. Okay, so there is the neck octave key. There's a neck octave key actuator. You can see where my thumb is. And then when I add the G, so I'm holding the octave key down and adding the G. See how the G is right here. This guy here is the body octave key. So the G actually rests on the body octave key. and then when you have the octave key pressed, it switches by releasing the body octave key and lifting up this lever to force that away from the neck octave key. You have to make sure that that closes all the way. You also have to make sure that this closes all the way. Now, while G is in transit, let's see if I can show this to you. Probably here's a better angle. You can see both of them are actually open for a bit while G is in transit. And there's really nothing you can do about that. You have to have that travel in there for them to switch. So it requires a bit of voicing, and you have to press your G quickly to have that be a clean transition. And it's not as clean as it could be just because of the way the mechanism is. You've also got lots of long rods on the 12M transitional. And you really need to make sure everything is nice and tight, so that, for instance, you see here, these are the side keys. The side keys are actually mounted on a rod that goes from here up to here. And it's a rather ingenious mechanism, keeps it pretty compact. But you hear how it's nice and positive there? No extra movement. That's something you're going to have to pay pretty close attention to have everything feel nice and snappy. You have to pay attention to your materials in here. You're going to need Teflon coating on all the sliding pieces, and on the back end where the key height is controlled, you really need to make sure that there's not a whole lot of extra space there so things don't bounce. On your lower stack, you've got another set of challenges where everything is really, really far apart, and you've got some interesting things going on as far as how things are actuated. So your E is actually actuated on the side from this key that also activates a key down there. Then your D goes from here down over. But it also closes your E key. Now what that's for is that is your alternate E flat, which not too many people use, but that's how they integrated that onto the 12M. So what you have to be careful of is making sure that everything is acting in concert together and not bending too much. And you may have to fit keys even in a really, really good conditioned horn to make that happen. And you're also going to find that you need to have these key heights really open because it's kind of undervented. You can see here when I close the F, the E tone hole is fairly small. And when I close the E, it's actually only one open tone hole, the D there, and then the E flat on both sides is closed. So the next open tone hole is the C, so the D is really undervented. So the best thing I think on these, when you're setting your key heights, is to start with what you need, and you can kind of see here how open these are. What you need to have your E and D not feel too stuffy. And then you're going to have your bis connection kind of determine the highest you can go on your upper stack, and then let intonation guide you in so much as you can, because the intonation on these is not perfect. Like I said, you're going to have to work for it. Now, one interesting thing on these, this is a 251,000 serial number, and this is a 253,000 serial number. The neck octave key, or octave pip, this one's been resoldered, so I can't be completely sure of its originality, but you can see the shape looks like a normal octave pip. And then on the 253,000, the shape has changed. Come on, focus. There you go, kind of. There we go. The shape has changed to the later shot glass style, which you find on the 10Ms. And this seems to help clear up a lot of fuzziness in the A. But on this one, what I had to do was the pantyhose trick to make it anywhere close to clear on A. You can still voice it and have it come out okay, but without doing a whole lot of work. The pantyhose trick, which if you Google Music Medic Octave pantyhose, you'll find what I'm talking about. Another thing to watch out for is you can see this one's been replaced. The neck tenon receiver and neck tenon on these instruments was very thin for a long time, and they're often really screwed up. So screwed up that it's really difficult to get them to be airtight. And make sure you test these are airtight, because they never are starting off. And every once in a while you'll see these come up on eBay. I've bought a couple old stock so that I can replace them. This one I was able to repair and get to be nice and tight, but that's actually fairly unusual in my experience. You also see that you've got the Chewberry style left-hand pinky table on these, which is fairly comfortable, not too bad. And you've got these nice big fat palm keys, but you'll notice that the F kind of goes up all the way around and down here. You need a pretty strong spring to make this feel normal and to make this stay shut. And you'll also notice there's no guards up here, which was kind of an oversight on their part. These things can get bent out of shape really easy, so be careful with those. Now the keywork on the left-hand pinky table, not too bad, but there's a lot of travel. I mean, it goes really far the way it's built. The C sharp, make sure that this guy is actually fitting. It's a little post in the middle. Let's see if this will focus. And there's a little itty-bitty screw in there that holds it in. And you may need to use like some cork or something on the inside where it goes in to make everything tight. If this isn't tight, your C sharp is going to flex in the middle when you actuate it, and it's going to make everything feel really gummy. But if you take good care of it, then you've got some really positive action. Even though it's a really long rod, it'll feel nice and snappy. These also have the set screws. You can see on the side of the pivots there. Need to make sure those are all working, otherwise your pivots will back out. I believe those are 080 threads. A lot of times they get kind of messed up over time, and the threads in the side of the post will not be correct, and the little guys will fall out. You can take a 256 machine screw, tap it out to 256 in the post, and just cut the machine screw down. And the difference is not that great from a visual angle. It looks basically the exact same, and it's just big enough that you can tap it out without having to drill anything, which is really handy. A lot of times you'll see lots of dents, and these guys will often come unsoldered. You almost always see these with solder marks. Same with this guy here on the back end. Lots of little posts and stuff. If you are the first person to touch one of these, probably you're going to have to unsolder a couple posts to get the screws out. They seem to get caught over time. But and as far as pads go, you can use pretty much anything. If you use a 160 thickness pad, you're going to find that you probably need to use a lot of adhesive behind the pad to make it as thick as it needs to be. You can see that these keys are, arched and back. When you get down to the real large keys, like the B and B flat, the distance from the back of the key to the center of the pad cup is actually pretty great, and you need to have a lot of adhesive in here if you want it to be steady the entire way through and supported and not thin in the back. So keep an eye on that when you're putting your pads in. You'll probably need to use more adhesive than you're normally used to. So there you have it. Those are Conn 12M transitional baritones. They have a great tone, but there are a lot of challenges that you need to work through if you want to use them as a daily player. It's not that it's not worth it, because it definitely can be, but it is it's not to be taken lightly. If you're thinking about picking up one of these, I would highly recommend you play one first to get an idea as to whether it's something that that works for you, or something that you can put the time in to really get out of what these horns are capable of doing. And that's about it. Hope you've enjoyed this. This is a saxophone repair overview by Matt Stohrer. 1933 Conn transitional baritone saxophones. Oh, and last thing. I find that these work really well with flat metal resonators or domed metal resonators. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.